We're going to jump right into our coverage of day 4 of the trial for Christopher Schurr. The hopes that this would wrap up in a week now looking pretty unlikely.
All witnesses moving forward will be for the defense now. Today's testimony begins at 8:30 per usual. Of course, this morning we have a recap for you, starting with one of yesterday's witnesses, cut short GRPD Captain David Siver. In court, Siver saying he's represented the department around 100 times. When court adjourned, prosecutor Chris Becker was in the middle of cross-examining Siver. That's where court will pick up today. Now, Siver has become a pivotal witness in the trial, and we'll hear more from him again later today.
So yesterday, he proved to be one of the strongest from the defense so far. 13 on your side's Deja Barrett is joining us live from outside the Kent County Courthouse. Now, Deja, while on the stand here, Siver said Schurr's actions could have been that of a reasonable officer.
Tanner, Emily, good morning. Yeah, so actually Captain Siver's testimony contradicted much of what the prosecution's witness said on the stand while he spent more than 2 hours on the stand. Now, Siver's considered an expert by the court and GRPD's policies. He said Schurr's actions were reasonable from start to finish and that he followed GRPD policy.
Do you have an opinion on whether an objectively reasonable GRPD officer in Officer Schurr's situation would have been in fear of serious bodily injury or death when Mr. Leona started getting up off the ground with his taser in his hand?
I do.
And what is that opinion?
That it was reasonable, that a reasonable officer could perform the same way in that situation.
Now, Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker asked Siver about GRPD's policy on foot chases in his cross-examination, and Siver admitted the department does not have one.
All right, Deja, yeah, thank you. Siver was one of the 4 current or former members of the GRPD on the stand yesterday.
Yeah, so what did those officers testify to?
Yeah, Tanner, Emily, many of the officers that were called to stand actually worked with Christopher Schurr on the day that Patrick Leoya was killed. And many of them, they testified about the staffing shortage GRPD faced that Monday morning. They also spoke about Schurr's condition after the shooting, saying he was exhausted and out of breath, panting as they arrived on the scene. And much of their testimony lasted only about 5 minutes.
All right, Deja, thank you for keeping those tabs for us. Again, Siver will continue his testimony this morning, and one of the witnesses he contradicted yesterday afternoon was on the stand just hours earlier. We're talking about Nicholas Bloomfield. He's actually not on the screen, but Bloomfield was the final witness for the prosecution.
Bloomfield started his testimony Tuesday. The expert in use of force training for police talked more about the taser used by Schurr. He told the jury Schurr used the taser incorrectly and said a reasonable officer should not have considered it a threat since Schurr had already fired off 2 of the cartridges. Now, much of yesterday's proceedings focused on what happened after the prosecution's final witness.
Schurr's defense requesting 2 motions with huge implications for the trial. The defense called for a mistrial, arguing the last 2 testimonies from prosecution were not experts in Michigan law and could sway the jury who have already heard them. The defense also called for a directed verdict, a motion that sort of gives the power of verdict to the judge. An attorney we've been speaking to as an expert explains.
What they were asking for the court to do was to declare that the prosecution hadn't established enough evidence to meet every element of the offense. And what they were saying is that, hey, even if you take all the facts in the light most favorable to the prosecution, at the end of the day, they did not establish enough facts for a reasonable jury to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that it was without justification.
Both motions were denied by the judge, Christina Mims. On the directed verdict motion, Judge Mims says there is enough evidence that, in her opinion, a reasonable jury could find the elements had been proved. As for the motion to a mistrial, she says the jury has already been explained why they can testify and to what exactly does their expert opinion apply to. We are showing the entire trial on our streaming app 13+. It starts at 8:30 every morning, but we can only start showing the actual trial after 9 because the judge has mandated that on a 30-minute delay for all media. Download 13+ on your TV and watch for free.